stop waiting another day. You have to book a one-way flight ticket and move abroad. You have to learn a new language and you have to explore the world and all the opportunities you can find around. In this video, I'm going to share with you my life back in Australia and what I've learned during my journey. Let's dive into it. I remember the two flights that I had to take to reach Australia because it's quite impressive how far it is from Italy, and it took me nearly 24 hours to get there. And once I've reached Australia, I was shocked because that was the first time ever where I landed in a place and nobody was speaking my own language. I was fortunate that I went to Australia with a friend of mine, so I had another person to talk to in my own language. We booked our first hostel in Melbourne a couple of days before, and once we arrived there, me and my friend, we were shocked because not knowing English at all, it was so difficult to find a way to move to the new hostel. So what we did first days, it was just understanding what we have done and also creating, like, buying SIM cards and putting ourselves in a new mindset where we had to open a bank account, figure out how to find a job and figure out where to go live after those 10 days in Australia. After preparing all the documents, we decided to find another bed and breakfast for 3 days, and we took the risk to reach a new place where we could start to find a job, because as you might know, in Australia I went there with a working holiday visa, and if you work in a farm for 88 days you can renew the visa for another year. So we decided to find a way to do the farm job as quick as possible, so we were ready to enjoy the rest of Australia. I remember the first day in that place was so hard because there was nothing to do and we focused on finding a job. So what we did was like talking to people in little bars, and I remember we found our first job after 2 days stay in that place. How did we find the job? We just spoke with a lady in a remote gas station, and she opened a newspaper and she found a job for us. She gave us a number, she called for us, and we got accepted to that job because it was a zucchini picking job. So they were looking for like people to start as soon as possible. And then we went back to the bed and breakfast and to start organizing ourselves on what to do next. After a few days we started to work in this zucchini farm, and the job, it was inside a tent picking these little zucchini, and it was a pretty tough job, but we did that for a couple of months. After that we decided to move to another city called Hillsville, and then we found another job driving tractor. I've never drove a tractor in my own life. I remember this boss told me, "Have you ever drove a tractor?" I told him, "No." "Okay, jump on the truck." I jumped on the truck, and after that he explained to me, like, this is the friction, this is the accelerator, these are the gears, so bye. And he left me alone. And then I learned myself how to drive the tractor, and that was pretty fun. After a few months of doing those experiences, we realized that it was time to move, so we bought a car. I was so shocked to buy a car in Australia because we went to the car dealer and we say, okay, now we want to spend this, and this guy showed us this beautiful red Ford Falcon from the 1990 and something, so it was a pretty old car, but it was so big, and in Italy we don't used to have those big cars. And after a couple of hours, after putting the money on his bank account, we got the keys and ready to go. We decided to start our traveling, our road trip in Australia. So from Melbourne we drove all the east coast up north till Canberra. Even a lot of people told us, no, do not go to Canberra because there is nothing to do, but we want to do our own things. So we decided, let's go to Canberra, but they were right because there was nothing to do in the city. And after Canberra we traveled to Sydney, and in Sydney we found a room to share with all the 6 people in a really central area. But was a hard decision to decide to stay there for the 10 days we booked because the parking was so expensive. And after realizing that Sydney is one of the most expensive cities in the world for the car park, so after 3 days we were gone of the city, and we moved again up north. We traveled to Brisbane, and then we reached Maroochydore. So Maroochydore was the place where I lived mostly in Australia. I spent there 6 months, and we found this huge house in like 3 minutes by walk from the beach. And a couple of weeks after staying in this house, my friend decided to move back to Italy. So that's when my real experience started in Australia, because I was alone. I was living in this house with 14 people from all over the world. So that was one of the best places I've lived in my whole life, because we had once a week dinner from like a specific country. So there was 1 week where we had to try Indian food because we had an Indian guy, another week American food, another week Chinese food, another week Italian food. But I was not cooking because I didn't know how to cook well. I didn't know how to do just pasta. That's it. That was my best thing I could do as an Italian. Pretty embarrassing, but that's what I could do. I did a couple of jobs in that place. The first one was I was giving my CV in a main street on this little town called Maroochydore, and my first job in there was helping a Moroccan chef cooking his dishes in his restaurant. I was basically like a, let's say, dishwasher, chef, many things all in one. And I was working during dinner, but I was trying to find a better job around the area. I was lucky that I had a car, so I found this job in a bread factory. And this job in the bread factory was like working to make gluten-free bread. So it was like a so nice experience because I was sweating. We were like 30 people making bread, and it was like a chain job with the heat of the ovens. But I've built, I feel, friendship through that job. What I've learned during those days and jobs in Australia was the capacity to adapt myself to any kind of situations, because not knowing the language and easy tasks like opening a bank account and calling for example, the Medicare, because in Australia there is a partnership between Australia and Italy where you could get the Medicare, which is the health insurance in Australia for free for 6 months, and then you need to renew that after 6 months. So doing like these little tasks which was so easy in my own country. Doing that in another language was so hard because I couldn't understand anything when I was speaking over the phone. So that was really tough for me in the beginning. What happened last 2 months of my journey in Australia, because I stayed for 1 year, I decided to continue my road trip all by myself, but with one challenge: sleeping in the car. So I lived for a month in a car, and the trip I've done was from Maroochydore to up north to Cairns. After Cairns, I drove 300 kilometers further north, and then I decided to pass all the central of Australia, reaching Alice Springs. I spent a couple of days in Alice Springs, which is like a city in the middle of nowhere. And after that, I went to Uluru to see the giant rock in Australia. I was so fascinated about that because it's like a giant rock, and if you look around 360, you cannot see anything, just desert. And I drove all of that by myself, and I was so happy about that because that was the scariest thing I've done all by myself, without the help of friends, family, and nobody at home. So I want to conclude this video telling you, if you're thinking to move to Australia, you are from like an European country, because what I believe, if you have like, depends which passport you have. I had an Italian passport and I could get easily the working holiday visa, and also with the working holiday visa you can renew the visa for another year, as I said, if you do the 88 days, and this is what I did. So if I want to go back there, I still have till the age of 35 to go back to Australia for another year. And the last advice I want to give you is that do not wait the last 3 months to do the 88 days in the farm, because those are really pretty tough jobs and you need to have specific postcode to do that, and those specific postcode most of the time are in remote areas where you don't have nothing and anything to do. So just make sure to do the 88 days as quick as possible so you can enjoy the rest of the trip, and if you're planning to stay another year, you can stay another year without any issue. Let me know in the comment below if you would like me to explore a bit more something that makes you interested, and also in case you would like to have help with something, maybe I can help. Bye.